Thanks for joining us for another episode of Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover. We're here to review week 2 in the NFL. Can't believe we're 2 weeks in already. Joined by Byron and Joe, as always. Gentlemen, welcome. How are you both doing?
Grand, yeah.
Yeah, can't complain. Cheers,
Good
folks.
stuff. Thoroughly enjoy week 2. It was an absolute cracker.
Great from Thursday through Sunday, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a week where we're trying to choosing the games to talk about. There was a good 3 or 4. It was like, oh yeah, we're just not going to talk as much about them this week because there's been 6 other great games. It was a good week.
Yeah, so apologies in advance if we don't talk about your favourite team. When while you're listening to this, it's just too many games to choose from, and we can't sit here and record 3-hour episodes. So we've been very selective. We'll touch on all the games, but we'll have a focus on the main ones. But as always, please go give us a follow. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure you follow to be notified of new episodes. Go and jump on our YouTube, our new and improved Instagram page, thanks to Joe, both at GTW_GTC, and also follow us on Twitter, X as well, where you see all of our bets posted there as well. So give us a follow on all of them, and also share some of your best bets with us as well. Be interested to hear during the week what you guys have been backing. Let's just jump straight into the review then. Week 2, we'll start with the Green Bay Packers at the Atlanta Falcons. I forgot who they played there. Atlanta won 25-24. Green Bay were initially 1-point favourites, but swung to 2.5-point underdogs. How I wish I'd have known that. And covered. What did you make of the Packers-Falcons game then? Come back in the fourth quarter from Atlanta.
Solid. I think, didn't it go the other way though? Didn't the Packers start as underdogs and finish as favourites?
Oh, sorry.
No, you're right. Sorry.
1-point favourite. I think it was the injuries, wasn't it? Jones and Watson that.
Yeah. Bakhtiari was out
as well, yeah.
I think that Bakhtiari thing could be an issue going forward as well, because there's been insinuations that he's going to refuse to play on turf. His brother kind of tweeted something out related to it this week. LaFleur was asked about it and he denied it, but he's probably not going to come out and openly say that he's going to refuse to play on turf. So, interesting one. But yeah, I thought the Falcons were solid, if not spectacular. But with their schedule, that's kind of all they're going to need to be, I think, to get to like an 8-8 or 9-8 winning record. So nothing huge to write home about. A little more involved with Drake London this week, which is obviously encouraging. Desmond Ridder still doesn't look, Desmond Ritter's not winning the Super Bowl. I'll happily stake my reputation on that. But yeah, Green Bay, I think if that game's in Green Bay and Green Bay have the weapons, I think Green Bay comfortably win. But on the road, minus weapons, the kind of games Falcons are just going to sneak.
Yeah, because they were like 24-12 up at one point as well. And I think they did have chances to win this. This is I think the Packers are a team where next year is going to be the true, where the Packers come back, because a lot of their players, they've got a lot of young players on their squad, another 2 touchdowns. Well, I think it's 3 of the touchdowns are from rookies. Obviously, you got Watson and Dobbs, and you've got Musgrave as well. As well. So you've got a really young offensive weapons there, and obviously with a young QB as well playing his first full season, Jordan Love, who's looked actually pretty impressive. I was looking at a few stats. I think he's thrown the most touchdowns this year, and he's got the highest QB rating, whatever. There's 2 different rating systems. So there is, positivity coming from Green Bay, especially with all the young players. And I think Van Ness looked good as well. It's just these kind of games where I don't think if you don't have experienced kind of players in the squad, you lose these kind of games. Yeah. And like you said, and we're missing some big players as well. And I think they lost the right guard as well during the game, who could be out for a few weeks. So it's I think it's positive for them. But then I think you've also got to look on the Falcons side as well. I think Bijan just looked incredible.
Yeah,
you could see why he got picked so high. It was breaking ankles and having a huge game. And I think it felt like Arthur Smith. We talk about coaches quite a bit with the fourth downs a lot. I think he went for 4 of them and hit 3 of them. I think 2 of them were turned into TDs and 1 field goal, and that's a big difference. Trusting your team to get that. And when you got someone like Bijan, it's easier to trust. But there's plenty of coaches who would have just punted and just gone for the field goal, and then we would have been talking about a Packers win this week.
Yeah. I thought he was going to go for the one at the end that ended up being the field goal to just to get that next set to really ice it and get that field goal with the last play of the game, but he didn't. But yeah, Bijan looked really, really good, as you mentioned there, Joe. I think he went for 6.5 yards a carry, 19 carries for 124 yards on the ground, and had some good support as well. And I think what you see is we knew that the Falcons were going to have quite a heavy ground attack, but pretty split. Tyler Algier is getting probably a lot more touches than I thought he'd get. I think he took another 16 carries again in the game on Sunday. And then you've got obviously Desmond Ridder can move as well. So, yeah, interesting. I think they're winning games in spite of Desmond Ridder, not because of him. I think that's fair to say after the first 2 weeks. But I certainly didn't think they'd be sat here being 2-0, and the NFC South has shocked us in the first couple of weeks. I think they're 6-2 after 8 games in the NFC South. So very interesting. But yeah, I think we've touched on it. The Falcons have got a pretty soft schedule, haven't they? But 2-0, it's a good start, and that's the kind of start that you can build off to make a run to the postseason.
Yeah, because you even look at like the splits between the teams. I think Atlanta had like nearly double the total yards than what Green Bay had, and it feels like that kind of team where they're going to get a lot of yards. It's going to be slow, and they're going to keep the ball quite a lot of running. And it's just like you said, it's up to Ridder to go mistake free and to get them 7 points instead of coming up short. But yeah, definitely going for like fourth downs. It was huge, but obviously I don't know if you saw the Jordan Love fourth down attempt where he went to sneak and it just completely didn't have the
QB
ball.
slip.
Again, and that's the kind of thing with that inexperience, and you wouldn't see, obviously if Rodgers was there like last year, that kind of thing doesn't happen. But yeah, I think he's growing into it, and like I said, he's looked better than I expected. I thought he was going to have a good year, but I didn't think he would look this assured in the first 2 games, and especially with that NFC North not being incredible, there's a positive outlook for the rest of the season and going forward.
They played quite well, especially given obviously missing Jones and Watson yesterday. Huge for the offense, huge for him this year. And without that, they kind of managed, to found a way to put up points. Another 3 touchdown passes for Jordan Love. Interesting point there about kind of how Atlantic do keep the ball for 36 minutes time of possession. And they're just going to try and ground teams out. I think it was over 200 yards on the ground, over 200 rushing yards. So there's a blueprint there for that Atlanta offense. If they can find a way to start getting Drake London more involved, find a way to start getting Kyle Pitts more involved and vary it. You've got Kadaro Patterson to come back in yet as well, haven't you? And start using all of those options, then I don't know, some Atlanta games might be fun to watch.
Yeah, because even look at it. Sorry, Byron, you go.
I think they had 45 rush attempts on Sunday, which that's a lot. And yeah, if you throw Cordero Patterson in there, that number's probably not going down too much. The split might change a little. Ridder probably won't be getting 10 rush attempts a game, but it's probably sticking around 40 rush attempts total because he's not going to win passing.
One to keep an eye on from a betting perspective, and it's one I had a bet at Cash Monday. It's well worth having a look at those 2 markets: team rush attempts and team rush yards. I don't know why they just seem really far out. The lines don't seem as like they the book is really good at the spread lines most of the time, really good at the over/under lines for just points total. That one just seems way out, and I think there's opportunities there to kind of win some big money there before they readdress, because they will get it right eventually. So yeah, there's just one to keep on, and teams like Atlanta, Cleveland, where I cashed the bet in last night, they're ones because they just don't seem to gauge it right at all. So yeah, one to keep an eye on, and you might have some opportunities for some easy wins there. Yeah,
especially when you look at, like I said, the Falcons. In like the first 3 quarters, only got 1 touchdown and 2 field goals with all the possession they had. So they are obviously running a lot. They actually did prove something a little bit with coming back. I thought they were a team, if they were like 10 points down in like the 3rd quarter, I'd be like, they're going to struggle to actually. But I think also like Green Bay did nothing in the 4th quarter. So I think that helps. So I think when they're playing a bit more, well, saying that the schedule is pretty easy, but when they actually come up with like a legit team, I think that's where they'll struggle in that sense. But yeah, definitely hit on the rushes because Ridder's not proven he's not like the worst quarterback, but he's not proven like he's going to win games for them. It is the typical like game management kind of quarterback he's shown the first 2 weeks.
I think he's probably going to hold the job as long as they're kind of scraping the wins as well, because Heineke, I think, has a higher upside, but I think he's probably more likely to lose your games as well.
Yeah.
So while he's not losing your games, you're just going to stick with Ridder and grind it. It was one of my season bets that I put on after we had our season show, preview show, was Young-Ho Koo to have the most field goals in the NFL this year, plus 1,300. Just because that same worry of like Ridder and the running game might him getting to the 20 a lot, but converting that to touchdowns, I think it's going to be harder when the field condenses for Ridder, and they know that he's running, and they know that the team's going to be running. It's going to be harder to get touchdowns. So he's off to a pretty good start. I think he's got 5 through 2 games. So
Did you see that big bet around the week where people put a bet on every game, early and late Sunday game, to have at least one field goal? Ooh. And I think it hit this time, and it was like, I think I saw somewhere like a booking company even paid 2 or 20 million out because like people had like backed it because it was like good odds. Like if you put a tenner on, you won like $2,000 or something daft like that. So he was like, I saw that. I was like, oh, that's such like it was like an obvious kind of bet to go for.
Yeah.
But obviously it must not hit all the time. But yeah, apparently it was a big payout.
Over half a field goal, all 16. What was it? Yeah. Well, not all 16, but all.
So yes, it was the
13.
Yeah, 12, the 1 and 4. Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah.
Cool, good stuff. Could be a GTW GTC special.
There you
go. Cool. We'll move on. I don't think any of us had any bets on.
I had over.
Yeah.
Which, we were in the big one and Koo missed the extra point. I was like, if that cost me a simple extra point, but yeah, it was fairly straightforward afterwards.
Cool, good stuff. Let's move on then. Ravens, Bengals. The bungling start to the season continues for Cincinnati. Slow out the blocks. 27-24 to the Ravens. The Ravens were 3.5 point underdogs. I think it came into 3 before kickoff. Again, same as last 3 years in a row. I think the Bengals have gone 0-2 out the gate. Are we again concerned for the Bengals, or are they going to get it together?
I feel I'm more concerned this year just because how the offense has started. I think I read somewhere, even last year, the offense was looking pretty decent. They're actually having good games. But it feels like this year they've just had 2 bad offensive games. Like it took them to the seventh quarter during the year to actually get an offensive touchdown. Like the first score was a punt return. So if you're relying on that, and we came into this season like Burrow's top 3 quarterback, their 3 wide receivers were, arguably the best 3 receivers on any teams, and they've struggled. Like Chase has struggled this year and a few others, and then with Burrows as it sort of aggravated his calf injury right near the end, and it's unsure if he's going to play next week or how that's going to work, because calves can be tricky, and you never know with them kind of injuries. It's certainly a bit more worried about them this year, especially how they've and obviously both being in division games as well, they've lost straight off. It's it's a terrible start.
Yeah, these are going to matter down the stretch, aren't they? That when they, those games, return games against the Browns and Ravens later in the year are going to be absolutely massive for the Cincinnati Bengals in terms of, you can't afford to be swept by those teams, because it's, it could be the difference between winning the division and a wild card, but with the way AFC is going, it could be the difference between wild card and not making it in the playoffs full stop.
Yeah, I think their only saving grace really is the Browns. Obviously will get to the game, but I don't think it's going to be a spoiler alert that the Browns aren't in a good spot through injuries. Their best defensive player got injured and he's out for the season, obviously. Steelers look very mixed. Defense is good, offense is not. And the Ravens have got injuries. Like, if Burrow can get better, then there's probably a chance to still win the division, but it's a real poor start. And it's not, a lot of it is Burrow, but it's not just Burrow. The O-line looks really poor. The defense isn't, adapting as quick as you might like as the changes are made in the offseason. But crucially, it's not just Burrow, but Burrow is such a huge part of that. You're making the highest paid quarterback in the league. And he's got a calf injury. And he's not throwing the ball as he should do. He's not pushing off his leg as he should do. I think it's maybe a good thing to give him the week off and try and get him right, because, it's better to go 0-3 and try and come back with Joe Burrow than it is for Joe Burrow to, go 1-2 and miss the rest of the season or be dinged up the rest of the season. It's not going to work out as a positive if they have to play their backup the rest of the season or if Joe Burrow's at 60% of himself the rest of the season, he needs to get right, ultimately.
We saw the Bengals, the trait of the Bengals over the last 2 seasons when they've been to the Super Bowl and been to the FC Championship game, is that defense seemed to work things out in the second half of games. Yeah. They aren't doing that. And they didn't do it against Cleveland, and they certainly didn't do it against Baltimore. No. They just seem a bit lost. And I think that there was a worry, and I think I did, I'm sure others did in our season preview around that secondary could be a problem, just losing too many guys at once. And, it was both safeties, wasn't it, that went. And I think, one of the leads of that defense are in trouble, and they seem to be floundering at the minute, and this could get out of control quite quickly, and especially if the Ravens can take advantage and get 3 or 4 games ahead of them, that's tough to turn that around and chase them down in the division. That's Cincinnati side of things. Baltimore, what did we make of? Are Baltimore better than last week against Houston?
Yeah, I think they looked a bit. Learning the new offense, I think maybe the best way to put it against Houston. Well, I think they were a lot crisper. You get Mark Andrews back, certainly helps a lot. You got his mandatory touchdown. But I think Lamar looked more comfortable. Obviously, you lose Gus Edwards. You don't lose Gus Edwards. You lose J.K. Dobbins, so Gus Edwards gets more work. But I kind of think when you've got someone like Lamar back there, you kind of just need competency in the running back. Like J.K. Dobbins is a really good one. He would have been a great addition there. But if you've got Lamar and you've got okay running backs otherwise, Zay Flowers had a quieter game, but yeah, I think it wheels up for the Ravens. They looked real good. And again, we talk a lot about coaching, but I think Harbaugh, again, just further shows how good of a coach he is. Like, he'll beat yours with his, and he'll beat his with yours. He'll always find a game plan to come out on top, it seems like.
And yeah, I agree. Yeah, Jackson looks so much better. There was 1 or 2 throws. I think there was 1 to Zay Flowers, which was incredible how he just put it in the only spot. And it was a great catch from Zay Flowers as well. And it's a surprise with the Ravens coming in where like their 4th best wide receiver, it could be even 5th, was Aguilar, and he had a great game. So he's like gone from a team where he's like, oh, gee, like who's their number 1 wide receiver to now being like, oh, they've actually got a good, Duvernay's their 5th best wide receiver. That's like good depth, which they haven't had for a long time. So they definitely look better. Running, I don't know if this was how good the Ravens are or how bad the Bengals up front are, but I think they got like 178 rushing yards and just ground it out. And what did I see? I saw like the actual numbers for how many plays they had. I think what total yards Ravens had 415 to 282 to the Bengals, and the Bengals just couldn't get off the field. It was crazy. I think it was 70 to 57 plays. So obviously the Ravens just ran it down the throats, and Bengals couldn't get off the field. And I think that's how the Ravens need to play this year, where Gus Edwards and Hill has to do a bit more now with the injuries, but I think definitely having the wide receivers. And I think Jackson, it's not like he's going from just doing the runs to just like throwing now. He had plenty of rushing yards as well when they needed it, when things broke down. They just needs to extend the play, and he's just probably the best quarterback to just sneak outside and get them 10 yards. And here we go on to the next set of plays. So I think it was a great week, and even like the defense stepped up. I think the safety who came in for Marcus Williams, he got the interception. Apparently he had a great game as well. So it's the defense. I was worried about Baltimore defense coming into this year, but Harbaugh does Harbaugh things where they somehow have like unknown players step up and just play well enough just to win these kind of games. So I think it was a good week for them. Like what Byron said with the injuries, with every other team as well, not looking good.
Yeah, I think what we saw with Jackson as well is you didn't see the mental mistakes that he had, the loss of concentration that he had in the loss of concentration he had at times in week 1. Big game, divisional game, he seemed to be focused, and we didn't see those mistakes. So the Ravens roll on. Really good start to the season for them. To be 2-0 and looking good so far.
And they have the Colts next week as well, so you could start 3-0. And when talking about Boaz, I think the next 3 games are Rams. We got Rams
on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, then they got Cardinals. Oh no, sorry. Then they got Titans, and then they got Cardinals. So it is one of them where you're like, okay, so it's a 3 game stretch where if you need to rest Burrows, is it like what Byron said? Is it best to do it now maybe go 1-2 in them games. So what, you 1-4 instead of being 2-3 and Burrows is out for the rest of the years, because you never know with calf injuries. So it's curious. But their backup quarterback had a stinker the preseason, so who knows
what
rookie,
right? Jake Browning, is
Jake
it?
Browning.
Yeah, apparently didn't have the best preseason even with the starters. So it's not a good spot for Bengals this year.
I think, and I think there's Will Greer as well, that Dallas let go, who played really well in that final preseason game. He's been in and around Dallas for a few years. And that's the thing where I think no matter what Burrow will play, I don't think they'll set him out, because if there was a true veteran there as a backup, I'd have trusted one. I think you play them and just get Burrow out and make sure that calf's right and stuff like that. You've got a chance to win the game. If they put one of those guys in, then they're not, that even play the Rams are good, and we'll touch on them at some point. It's making me angry already.
That spread's come down a lot this week.
Yeah,
the Rams were 6.5 underdogs, I think, on Sunday morning for next week, and I think it's 2 points now.
Yeah, and I think following on from what you're saying, Paul, being 0-2 as well. If they were 2-0 and Burrows had to be like, okay, yeah, well, if we go 2-3, get Burrows back, fine. But 0-5, you basically that season done, really.
Yeah. Pressure in Cincinnati with them being obviously a big contender for Super Bowl. We could see them get knocked out of contention quite early. But who knows? It's a long road ahead, and the last couple of years have come back from a slow start. So let's see if they can make it 3 years in a row. Let's move on to probably what was one of the funnest games of the week, or the funnest game of the weekend, I thought. The Seattle Seahawks and Detroit Lions. There was points everywhere in this one. Seattle winning overtime, 37-31. The over obviously hit, and Seattle were 5-point favourites. Obviously covered with winning the game. Very fun game, and can I just give myself some credit on the Jared Goff? This streak pass, this run's going to end where he's not throwing an interception.
I mean, you've said it for 29 straight games, so it was going to come.
And you need a Geno as well, Paul. It was only half a bet.
I know, yeah, I shouldn't have done it. I got greedy, and I should have just took Goff. It was just plus 160. I should have just took that.
Yeah, it was a great bet, to be fair.
I got greedy. Yeah, I got greedy on. I thought Geno throwing as well, and especially
Geno is who he is, right?
Yeah, exactly. Especially when I saw it was a bit of a shootout, I was like, "Oh, surely he's thrown one," and yeah, he did not. But yes,
Geno was great.
Yeah, all right. Well, we'll get to that. Overtime, just a great watch when I was caught up and was watching it. A question about the Lions. So some may say that the Chiefs lost that opening game, not that the Lions won it. I mean, both things are true, but in the sense of the Chiefs threw it away as opposed to it was the Lions going out and winning the game. And then they've just got beat at home by Seattle, who were particularly poor week one. What are the Detroit Lions?
I think for me, I was one of them who said I think the Chiefs lost it. I still thought Lions were a good team, but they have had a lot of injuries this first week and second week now. To their big players, like I know they lost, was it the right tackle? Yeah, they lost the left tackle last week. They lost Vaitai during this game, who might be on IR. They lost, I know Gardner Johnson's injured now. Montgomery, who's actually surprised me when we came to this year. I was like, what are they doing getting Montgomery in? But I'm sure in the preview, the Detroit guy who had in, he proved us wrong. Montgomery looked really good start. So obviously he's injured, and I think you lost 2 of your pass rushers as well. So from last week, the defense looking good and getting some pass rush, to this week, not getting much at all against a Seattle team who would look, like you said, didn't look good against Rams, and also lost their 2 starting tackles as well. So I was surprised how they didn't get as much pressure as I expected to. But when you lose, I think, they lost, I think he was a rookie last year. James Houston, who got 8 sacks last year. If you lose him and you've only got Hutchinson now, that's when it's like, the depth on the defensive line is not as good as we thought. Then teams were like Geno is one of them in this league where if they have time, they're gonna get plenty of yards and score plenty of points. But when they're under pressure, that's when it all falls apart, and that's the difference between a great quarterback and a good quarterback. And if you can't get that pressure, then you're going to lose these kind of games. So I do worry about the Lions going forward with these injuries, especially with their own, because Jared Goff's the same kind of playing with their offensive line, losing key players. Yeah, it's tricky because I think next week they've got Atlanta, which I'm looking forward to that game. It'll be a good game, but you go from beating the Chiefs first week, thinking, hello, these could be one of the contenders in the NFC, to who knows where they're going to be compared to the other one. So I think it's a bit tricky. Yeah,
fully agree. That's why I had the Lions and lost obviously on the over-under. It's not the over-under, on the spread, because I just thought they're going to get pressure Geno. And with how they looked against the Rams in week 1, I thought, you get pressure Geno. He's not Geno from 2022 anymore if he's getting pressure. And yeah, Detroit just couldn't get to him. And he had I'm not going to say impeccable game, but he had a very good one. He was back to, the highs of last year, not the lows of the end of last year. But like you say, if you're not getting pressure with the weapons that Geno has as well, like, you're going to struggle to slow down Seattle. And this is kind of what I expected coming into the season. But after last week 1, I had real concerns about it. But Detroit just feels so Jekyll and Hyde, like you said. Just, you don't really know what you're getting week to week. And if them injuries pile up, it's going to be rough. Their wide receiver depth is, you're banking on Jameson Williams being a game changer when he comes back in week 7. Yeah, and, Jameson Williams, he was great in college, but like, he hasn't shown anything in the NFL. I thought they should have done more to address it in the offseason. And yeah, they've added Jahmyr Gibbs, and he already seems to be a little bit in Dan Campbell's doghouse. You could blame him for Goff's interception. Said he was too indecisive coming out of his route. I didn't see it. It looked pretty good to me. I think it was just Goff got thrown away too early. Didn't let Gibbs get to his spot, and Montgomery went out, and Gibbs still wasn't featured. They're bringing Craig Reynolds in to carry the load. And it's like, well, if it's kind of why we were also gobsmacked and a little critical of the Gibbs pick in real time. Like, and if they're showing that they're not going to use him as a workhorse because he can't be, you probably shouldn't be taking him 12 overall.
He's had 23 touches in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I think the only thing I would say, though, when I was watching the game back again, realistic, it was the turnovers which cost Lions the game as well. That, pick 6 and also another fumble twice, one at the end of it. But the fumble would start the third quarter, and I think the Seahawks got that touchdown from that. So even though I was disappointed with the Lions, with the pressure and all, and this with the pressure of the Seahawks with like their weapons, especially Lockett, still doing it at however old he is. That if they don't have them turnovers, then you would be like, oh, Lions have probably won this by a touchdown or so. So I think it's them kind of mistakes where I think they're very similar teams, but it's that kind of difference which results in one team winning and one team more.
Can I just shout out that I think we should? I know overtime rules have been changed recently. I think we should just be changing overtime rules. Make it like it is. Are we going to do it in the playoffs, or make it like college? I just think it's bullshit that the other team doesn't get the ball.
College football rules should just be the mandatory. Yeah. I hate the overtime rules.
But even the playoffs one, like you could technically they score a touchdown, then the other team has scored a touchdown. That isn't if then Seattle scored a touchdown again, then they would have won.
Yeah.
So it's just prolonging it. So I understand in the college direction.
But yeah, I just hate it.
From when I first got into the NFL, it bugged me. And when I first heard about the college football rules, like, I don't know, 15 years, whatever it was ago, like, it was like, that is the perfect solution.
And they've changed. They've changed as well to try and trim it a little bit as well. To you get a touchdown, you get the choice. If it's second round, you have to go for 2, and then if it goes again, it's just 2-point plays back and forth. It's great
because I think that was the issue, wasn't it? That in college it was constantly he was going like 6, 7 overtime. They were like NFL players they've just spent 60 minutes and they don't want to do another.
I just think it's bullshit that both teams don't get to touch the ball, and that annoys me.
I was happy with it because my bet came up, so which made me nervous because obviously they were leading by 10. I think it was with 5 minutes to go, something like that, and I was like, oh, there's no way. I was like, even if the Lions score 2 touchdowns, I've still won anyway because I had +5. So I was like, plus 4.5. I was like, oh, happy days. And then it was like overtime was the only way I could have lost that bet, but I was happy Seahawks. So
yeah. You had a pretty good week, and we'll get to that. Joe, what did you have on? Yeah, what part of your bet was the Lions Seahawks?
I had Seahawks plus 4.5, but +5 on the foursome. But in my bet it was 4.5.
Ah, okay, got you.
Lions touchdown kills you.
Yeah, so when it was like 10 points up, I was like, well, they're basically leading by 15 here on my bet. And I was like,
I was looking at week one and going, he's not the Seahawks in this bet. What's he talking about? And yes, it was part of your FourFold, wasn't it? Good stuff. We'll get to that and we'll celebrate your success there, Joe. Don't worry.
Cheers, pal.
Anything else from Seahawks Lions? They were an over for me. I hit the over on Seahawks Lions. That was one of my successful bets for the week for Mr. 67% here.
Other thing I would say is obviously Pete Carroll changing his ways and going for a few fourth. Again, it feels like it's more and more now, and it's like it's paying off for these teams. So it's a bit like, some of the old heads who don't go for fourth downs. It's like, just go for it, man. Some of these guys, I think it was like on the Seattle 44 as well when he went for it, and it's just like, and that could be a difference between winning and losing. That kind of play.
He's get back guy. His get back guy at the end did not do a good job. He was going absolutely wild. I was worried for him. I thought he might have had a stroke or something at that point.
The fittest 70-year-old man in the world, I think, Pete Carroll, though. I don't even know how old he is. He might be past 70 now, but man, he's in some shape.
He's probably late 70s, surely, isn't it, Pete Carroll?
Yeah. No,
apologies if you're not Pete. Right, let's move on. That's the 1-1 Seattle Seahawks and the 1-1 Detroit Lions. Chargers Titans. What is it I say? The Chargers just never going to change, are they? Just never ever going to change.
Don't bring up the pass to Brandon Staley, though. Did you see him sulking at the reporter?
Yeah.
I think I've got a great fact for you. Is it here? Yeah. So, this is last of this. So, with the loss, the Chargers became the first NFL team to go 0-2 to begin the season while scoring 50-plus points without any turnovers. And also, last week, they were the first team to lose a game while rushing over 220 yards, allowed less than 100 yards on the ground, and turned the ball over 0, and also won the turnover by 2. So it's just like, it is like you said, the Chargers are going to charge where, when you look at all the stats, if you look at all the stats, it's like, they're 2-0. Easy. Yeah. And then it's just like, what? They're not. 0-2.
We should absolutely be sat here with the Chargers being 2-0. They should have won both those games. Absolutely should have won both those games. They fell 27-24 to the Titans. This was our second overtime game, wasn't it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Free football. And just how did the Chargers lose the game? I mean, how did they lose this one? Let's start there.
I think for me, it felt like such a Titans win, though. If I can imagine the Titans is like, somehow just their defense, it felt like they won the game. Like I said, like last week, the Chargers ran for 220 yards. I think this week he was on 70 or 80, if that.
61 yards.
Yeah.
Really very well this week.
So and I know Eckler was out, but still Kelly looked good last week, and then suddenly. So obviously the Titans' defense is better than. I think everyone expects the Titans' defense to be good, but wasn't sure how good they are, and that's their strength. But obviously Tannehill looked a lot better than last week when he played his worst game ever last week. And I think it's just like you said, it's just Titans where Herbert's thrown, over 300 yards again, and I only got one touchdown. It's crazy.
I jumped off the Chargers when I saw obviously Eckler was out and that Joey Bosa was questionable, and Bosa did play and he got a couple of sacks, but I jumped off that Chargers 2.5. And we should have known that Titans were going to win this game as soon as all three of us put the Chargers on our picks for the week that they were going to win this game. And cover there. I think it ended up being 2.5, but it was 3 when we pulled it. But I really struggle to explain how the Chargers throw away these games and just snatch losses from the jaws of victory.
It's frustrating, isn't it? Because this should be a contender this year. When you look at their squad, when you look at everything, one of the top 5 quarterback, and it's more frustrating when you look at the Chiefs. Obviously, I know we'll play top bit 1-on-1, but they don't look amazing. You think, if Chargers are 2-0, had 2 good victories here, you'd be like, wow, Chargers are the favourite for the West. But I think I may have mentioned it when we did our preview. It was like there's certain teams where the narrative never changes, and it just feels like, and you always think, well, it's got to change at some point, but it just doesn't with the Chargers. It's crazy, and I'm still not. The head coach Staley still. I think when he first started, when he first started, I was like, "Oh, this could be a good coach." Like, going for fourth down, actually getting he didn't get the best offensive coordinator for her, but there was like positivity, and now it's just like you said, is he going to last the year? And who knows with Kellen Moore? Because again, they had a decent offense and like how many yards and stuff, but they're just not putting the points on the board, especially this week.
And I thought that drive, so the Chargers kicks the field goal at the end of regulation, didn't they, to take it to overtime? But the drive to get there, I think they got they were at the Tennessee 25 with 1:15 to go. Yep. Even actually, probably less, so inside the 15-yard line with a minute to go. Couple of timeouts, 4-yard pass, 3-yard pass, 8-yard sack.
It's just win it. Just go and win it.
Yeah.
It's just there to be won, and
And that the drive in overtime. So the Chargers got the ball in overtime. Incomplete pass. Yeah. Punt. Drive lasted 17 seconds of game time.
And those two plays to end the fourth quarter before the sack. It's Josh Palmer for 4 yards. It's Josh Palmer for 3 yards. It's like you just drafted Quentin Johnson so early. Like, how far off is he? Like, Josh Palmer, get him the fuck out of here. Like,
and Allen looks amazing as well.
Yeah, you've got Keenan Allen there.
Keenan Allen is such a good route runner. You can't get him to get you 7 yards. You can't scheme a play up to get him 7 yards. Like, it just, the Chargers have a good O-line as well. It's not like that Herbert's getting pressure in his face all game. I know the Titans defense is good, but it is frustrating to just see this over and over and over again. And, I caught this morning that Tua is the MVP leader right now at plus 500, which obviously a great drop in price for him. And Justin Herbert's gone from like plus 1,200 to plus 1,600. If the Chargers win those two games, you reverse those odds. Justin Herbert's probably plus 500 to be MVP because he's played so well. And they're two winnable games. And just once again, Chargers going to Charger.
Yeah. It was Titans' first win as well since like November 17th or something like that. So it's not like they're playing a team which is like coming off, loads of wins and flying with confidence. It's
well, the biggest Titans narrative in the past 7 days prior was should the Titans trade Ryan Tannehill to the Jets because they're not doing anything this year. So obviously they're going to beat the Chargers. Of course they are. Like, it's just
he hit 20 from. He had the second highest completion percentage, I think, ever. Something like I've read. It was like 20 for 24, and you just like. Again, I was thinking the Chargers defense is going to be a lot better, but again, they feel like. I always feel like the Chargers got a soft defense. I feel like they've got good players, but they just feel a bit soft where it just feels like a team can bully them and just like get like even last week where they make silly mistakes or like, Hill's always open. He felt similar to that, and Henry looking good. I think TJ Spears is looking really good as well.
Yeah,
because he got plenty yards as well. So.
Absolutely love TJ Spears. Who's a big part of why Tulane were a great back in college football last season. But yeah, I think we'll see more and more of him. He's a real good compliment to Derrick Henry as well in terms of just obviously the complete kind of opposite end of the scale of running back that Derrick Henry is. I think he will see more and more of him. I'm hoping so because he's on my fantasy football bench, so hopefully I can bring him in at some point. But you look at that Chargers defense that we've talked about, it should be good. Derwin James, Joey Bosa, JC Jackson, Khalil Mack, Asante Samuel Jr. That should be a really, really good. That should be a top defensive unit.
Yeah,
and they're just not.
Yeah. And I think they give away big plays as well. I think like some of the touchdowns was like it was like 71 and a 49 yard. I think that was to the Titans' young wide receiver. I can't remember what his name is now.
Burks.
Yeah, give it to Burks. So similar to last just like giving up these big plays like they did with Hill, where it's just killers. Where a team Tennessee, where you don't really feel like they're a team up, hits deep shots and pushes it down the field when they're just getting in. It's just not good enough.
And we touched on it last week as well, but Mike McDaniel going for it at the end of the second quarter, and JC Jackson gives it the PI. They just don't seem mentally in. Like, it's that awful combination that you never want as like a good team to have a defense that gives up big plays and you can run on them. Like, what does the defense do well other than having big names and have a defensive head coach? Like, the more it goes on, the more he can't last another year.
So I was going to say, is there a risk here that Brandon Staley doesn't last the season?
Chargers don't seem that type to me, but
yeah, and also Chargers apparently the owners are not that rich, so if they get rid of him, they got they've got more money. That was like I heard that that's why mine's done next year because they just don't want to sack him and pay. Similar to it wasn't like the Browns were paying like 4 coaches at one point. So
I think the Browns always have 4 coaches.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, the Chargers like the owners just can't afford it basically. And
same with I know you said Oakland, but same with the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Davis doesn't have the bankroll, so Josh McDaniels is there until he can't afford to sack him.
Cool. Chargers both let you down, and you both had a couple of parlays.
Yeah.
The Chargers let you down, Byron, and you, Joe, as well. They weren't the only ones, I don't think, but yeah, not good. I'm so glad I jumped off them when I saw the Eckler and Joey Bosa potential that missed the game. Let's move on. Giants Cardinals. I owe a Giants friend of mine an apology. I was mocking him when they finally scored some points in the second half of that game. Congrats on your first points of the season.
You can still mock them though. Even with the win, you can still mock them. It's not like they've done it against the amazing team.
Yeah. A putrid start to the season for the Giants, certainly the first 6 quarters. So they sparked back into life to win this game. And yes, not against not particularly great Arizona Cardinals team, but still from the hole that they were in, 20 down and then 28-7 down, right? They come out and ended up winning the game 31-28. What was I suppose, what do you guys, what was the turning point for the Giants to actually get going in this one?
I think the Cardinals realized they might win a game. It's like, hey guys, Caleb Williams is waiting. Hold up, let the Giants run a couple in here.
Each got £1 million bonus for everyone under the table.
I mean, they looked better. I think Daniel Jones got moving a little more, which certainly helped in the second half. I think Brian Daboll might have had a very stern word with them at halftime, and Brian Daboll looks like he might have a very stern word in him. But I mean, they didn't look killer, did they? They didn't come out and trample the Cardinals in the second half. Like you said, they still gave up a score. And the Cardinals weren't completely overawed. It got away from towards the end, but Giants still are. I'm certainly not encouraged by the comeback. Like, I'm more encouraged than if they just lost. But, like, if you told me going into the week that they were going to win 31-28 in a, shootout with the Cardinals, I wouldn't be like, oh, yeah, they're back. This is a team going back to the playoffs.
Tied the biggest comeback in franchise history, didn't they? I think probably a bit that was a combination of what they did. They just went to their big three, didn't they? They got Jones moving more, they fed Saquon, and they got Darren Waller the ball. And I think ultimately that was the combination that got them going and got them over the line here.
Some big plays from Hyatt as well, from the rookie wide receiver as well, which helps.
Jalen Hyatt went to 2 receptions for 89 yards. Another one that I hope sparks into life because he's also on my bench in a fantasy football team. Just get them going. I've got my squads very deep, lads. If you need any trades, come knock on my door. Joe, you got absolutely hammered by me this week.
I know, terrible.
But yeah, because Hyatt was kept out of the game completely, wasn't it, against the Cowboys last week? So, interested if they can get him going. Big fan of Jalen Hyatt, but yeah, I agree. I don't think this is a turning point for the New York Giants. I still think they're a pretty bad team. But they needed this one. I think if they'd have gone 0-2, the walls might have started caving in on them early.
Yeah, because I think definitely it was more concerning the first half than the Dallas game, because I was just a bit like, Dallas again, they've just, horrible weather. You just take it as bad loss, we'll move on. And then, the first half when I think, they were 20, so they were in the first 6 quarters, they were 0 points scored, 60 points against. I think it took them 90 odd minutes to get the first point. Yeah. And it just, and I haven't watched it. I've just watched the highlights quickly. But what I've heard is that apparently even it was just sloppy play the first half. There was a lot of penalties. It looking like a bad coached team, which you think should be the opposite for the Giants, where you think, they'll be one of the best coached teams, no mistakes. And that's how they won a lot of games last year as well, was just them little differences between not playing sloppy football. But definitely agree with Byron. Then I feel like Jones actually came out. I want them he's proven his contract, but it was actually looked like a good quarterback with I think he was there, rushing for 60 yards and actually hitting some players down the field, and it was I would say great comeback. It was a good comeback, but I am still concerned with their defense as well. The fact that Arizona was throwing all over them. James Conner was running through them as well. That is concerning because you did think with some of their additions they had, a few of the draft picks, you thought, it might actually be a decent defense this year, and they've not looked good. And then I know we're going to come up to it, but the next few games they've got San Fran, they've got Seahawks, they've got Dolphins before playing Washington. So yeah, if they didn't have this one, then it could have been like, it's like an 0-5 start going to Washington. Yeah, things are falling apart, but it still could be 1-4, but at least it gives bright spot. But also, we've got obviously Barkley going out injured. I don't think it's as bad as I thought it was going to be, because it did look bad. Just how his reaction was. I think it's going to be a couple of weeks out, but yeah, not good when it's your main player is gone.
News this afternoon is that the Giants have yet to rule him out of Thursday, so that he might play Thursday, which is wild. Given I've seen, it's not great. Yeah,
I don't think he will. I think they're just saying that, so they're just trying to put some more of. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think so too.
When you got Matt Breida as your second running back, you're not as concerned.
Matt Breida revenge game coming up.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think the 49ers are probably looking forward to a pretty comfortable Thursday.
Well, it'd be good if they can cover a fucking spread. Yeah, the Cardinals. We've talked a lot about the Giants there, understandably so. But the Cardinals, let's shine a light on the Cardinals. Josh Dobbs actually looked okay.
Yeah, he looked okay. I don't have too much to say about the Cardinals. To be fair, they're competitive, which I think is more than you could maybe ask for, and certainly more than people expected. I think at this, and I include myself. I'm saying people. I had them losing on the spread each week, and they've covered the spread each week. So,
yeah, I think what
teams lose, okay teams cover. I mean, I think they're doing better than expectations. So, good for Gannon and good for the band of players they've got together. But
they could be sat here 2-0. They could be sat here 2-0. They could very easily could have won that game in Washington last week.
Yep.
You should have won this one, given the lead you get out to. You shouldn't throw that lead away at all in the NFL. Yeah. So maybe this is like the perfect outcome for them. Let's be in games. Let's be competitive. Let's kind of get the fans in and still lose them and still try and get this number one pick.
I said fans in, wasn't it like 75% Giants fans at the game?
It was very blue.
Yeah.
75% Giants, 25% USC. It was.
James Conner was looking good, actually, especially in the first half. So if you had him in fantasy or any bet, it was I think he got over 100 yards this game.
Yeah, 100 and a touchdown.
Yeah, so. Yeah, like I said, it's positive, but it's also a bit like it's a nothing season. I think, it's probably the perfect 0-2 for a team who's looking for a possibly a brand new quarterback and plenty of picks for the current injured quarterback. It could be a perfect scenario at the end of the season. But Buda Baker's out as well for the rest of the year, so that probably helps them out to get 0-17. So.
But staying on my list of teams to back, you'll cover the spread twice now.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on them. I might jump on that Cardinals covering bandwagon. Cool. Let's finish off then in terms of the. We've got 2 games actually left to go. A game I didn't think we'd be talking about in the review: the Washington Commanders and Denver Broncos. That turned out to be a very fun game in the late slate. Washington win 35-33. The tag for this one, you'll see it on the screen at the bottom. Apologies for this. Peyton's prayers partially answered with the Hail Mary at the end. Couldn't quite get the 2-point conversion. Probably about right for where the Denver Broncos are at the minute. They got that piece of luck. That's gone through 4 sets of hands before it's been caught, that Hail Mary. It's ridiculous.
He flicked it to himself. But
so good.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know if you saw it should have been probably a pass interference as well, the 2-point. And I know wasn't Peyton, he's not too happy with Roger Goodell. I think he sent a stern letter when he was at New Orleans because they got the worst refereeing decisions out of anyone in the last 10 years. So guess he's not too happy with that. But I think I messaged you guys when it happened. It felt so it's like a Wilson kind of thing the last 2 years. Yeah. Comes back with a huge Hail Mary and then it's like, wop, wop, wop. It just felt like, it was weird as well because watching it, I didn't expect him to get it. I think that's the crazy thing. I wasn't like, when you see other teams like, oh, they're going to get this 2 point, it's like,
Momentum's with
oh
them.
yeah, he's not going to get this. I could have put some money on that he wasn't getting it, but it just it just feels that kind of year and kind of Russell Wilson's career the last 2 years.
I don't know why it seems so Russell Wilson as well. Like he was running down the field, like holding his fingers up like they're going for 2. It's like, no shit. Imagine kicking the field goal. Like that'd be Sean McVay-esque. But like, what? You don't need to tell people you're going for 2. Like you're down by 2 with no time remaining. You don't need to be showing everyone. Like it's just so Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
And I just want to, before we pour one out for Sean Payton's poor team, not getting the rub of the green or whatever. I don't want to rant, but like Sean Payton missed a bounty gate. Sean Payton, who's had, his safety going headhunting 2 weeks in a row. Kareem Jackson got removed for nearly taking Logan Thomas's fucking head off to Sunday. If you don't get the rub of the green later on, I have zero sympathy. Like, don't be a headhunter. Don't try and get your players to knock other players out of the game.
He should be suspended for the rest of the season. That's 2 weeks in a row. The first one not as bad. That one was horrendous.
Yeah.
He's caught the ball before. He's caught the ball before he's jumped into him. He's looking at him and just goes straight with the crown and the helmet.
Yeah.
Ban him for the season. That was
awful. He's not even getting banned, is he? I think he came out yesterday. He's not getting banned for the next game.
I think it's just fine. Yeah.
That's a joke. He should absolutely be suspended.
The NFL care about player safety unless you have to make a decision.
Yeah, it's a joke.
Like not letting a bounty gate coach again maybe would be an idea, but that was a long time ago. Sean Payton's definitely changed. It's just a coincidence his players are now headhunting again.
Yeah, I was farcical from Kareem Jackson.
Awful.
To Russell Wilson, still oddly thought he looked proper ropey. He went for 308 yards, 3 touchdowns, only completed 18 of 32. The touchdown pass to Marvin Mims was nice.
Mims looked really good.
Classic moon shot of Russell Wilson's. But yeah, he still didn't look good.
Well, I think what I saw is he hit a few like deep shots early on, like to Mims and some nice ones. But then he just after that, he was like, "Oh, I'm going to keep going for these deep shots." It's like, why don't you just hit some nice short intermediate passes throughout the game? Get some yards and actually, your team was winning. It was like 21-3 at one point. Yeah, 21-3 in the second quarter. It's like you don't need to keep going for these bombs and to show everyone that you're back and that you can throw all these. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like Washington's going to adjust to that if you keep doing that. So why don't you, and apparently, I think he looks better than last year, but, he's definitely not back to where he was. And I know we had when we did the preview, I think both me and Byron went to up on the Broncos this year because I just didn't think you can turn around Wilson and become a great, the great quarterback again. I just don't think, even with Payton, I don't think you do that. I am worried about their defense, though, with the Broncos. They're not looking as good as I think people expected. I think last year they had a good defense, and was it Evero? He's left, and now it's Vance Joseph. And I wonder if they had the defense of last year, would they again be 1-1, 2-0 kind of team? Mm-hmm. But it's just because they are conceding way too many points to. Who did they play last week? Oh, Raiders. So it's
Ravens in a low-scoring game.
Yes, it's not like the. Playing against high-flying offenses, and they're still
to be 0-2, having played because those are 2 home games as well, I believe.
Yeah.
Not a wonderful start to the Payton era.
But it was crazy this game because obviously Washington were up 35-24 with like 7 minutes to go as well. So it's just like the back and forth comebacks this week was.
They blew a big lead.
Yeah.
Well, came back and but it was just a crazy entertaining game. I thought, like I said, the back and forth nature of it, the Washington coming back in and it going back again. I just didn't think we'd be talking about this one. What do we make of Sam Howell's start? Obviously, it's his third start, isn't it? But obviously, this is his first year as the actual starter. 2 wins under his belt. What do we make of Sam Howell?
Yeah, I think the first half was pretty sloppy, I think. But he certainly got a lot better in the second half. I think maybe cutting it loose a little more kind of helped him. Just, Bieniemy's obviously a pretty good offensive coordinator. Kind of looks like the Chiefs might be missing his influence a little as well. But, I think Howell, the first half I was maybe getting a bit skeptical. And I've kind of been a bit skeptical through the offseason on Howell, I must be honest. Just everyone got excited about one game at the end of last season, but I think he looked pretty good. They've got really good weapons. McLaurin's obviously one of the better receivers in the league, and
great catch, wasn't
it? Wonderful, yeah. Brian Robinson is like looking like an actual competent, not just a turgid running back. He looks like he's actually got a bit of juice to him. It was weird, when you're not playing immediately after being shot like he was last year. But yeah, Howell I found really promising in second half. They said Denver's defense not as scary as it once was, but I think that's definitely a big encouragement for Washington.
I think, like you said, is the adjustments as well. Like they came like straight from halftime to, was it like 3 touchdowns on the first 4 drives? Obviously like Bieniemy is changing things up at halftime and making adjustments where, again, that makes a difference. And I think not turning it over as well, which you never know with a young quarterback, how much is he gonna turnovers, fumbles. I think he may have fumbled once, but we covered it. But compared to Denver, who lost 2 fumbles, it's that kind of margins where, with these kind of games, is a win or loss. And I think it's definitely promising. I think he's a lot better than what people think he was going to be, but also they've played the Cardinals and Broncos. You know what I mean? So I'm not that high on him yet because we'll see what they're like when. I think we got the Bills next, so that's when Bills has probably got again top 10, top 5 defense. I think that's the first proper test to see how good he actually is.
Yeah, that's the first test next week for sure. I had the Commanders ending up with the number 1 overall pick in my preseason predictions, and they're sat 2-0. I mean, nice start. We'll see when they come up against some tougher teams, but good win in the end in a very entertaining game. We'll finish off our in-depth look at the games with, I've still not finished watching this game because it went on for so fucking long. Cleveland Browns against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I've got to just at the start of the third quarter. I thought I had an hour and a half before we started recording. I watched Saints Panthers and I was like, I'll watch Browns Steelers. Obviously in order of when they were. I thought an hour and a half will be fine. Skip through it all. Oh my God. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know. I was going to say we're going to break some news here to you and pretend that the Browns won, but
this game goes on forever. Pittsburgh Steelers win 26-22. Steelers home underdogs again, weren't they? +2.5. I think was it +2, +2.5,
2.5, I believe.
+2.5. Tomlin's usually good in these spots. Wasn't so good against San Fran this week. Was this week in a big game against the Cleveland Browns. I suppose notable headlines. Nick Chubb that might be the worst sort of knee injury I've ever seen. That is just disgusting, isn't it?
I don't know if you've seen it on your flick through replay, but Aikman and Buck were like, we're not going to be replaying this. It's absolutely brutal. And they obviously showed a replay in the stadium, and you just hear the Steelers fans like, "Ooh,
it's awful."
Yeah, I didn't realize in real time what had happened, and then as they were talking, you hear that, and you're like, if they're reacting like that, that is obviously going to be something nasty.
All about him. Obviously, he's going to miss the season. Of course, he is because he just exploded. How do you come back from that?
We just got things like Adrian Peterson, kind of I'm guessing that kind of mindset, who blew out his knee and then rushing yard lead in the year after. So I think that's the positive side. But then obviously the other side could be his career's done. Who knows?
And there's a difference between an ACL tear and that.
Yeah. Well, we're not quite sure what's fully done yet, but yeah. And it's disappointing as well because obviously we've lost, Rodgers, who was probably on the most exciting team coming into the year, and then you probably lost the best, probably pure running back in the league as well. It's when the big players go, and it's now and when you watch the Browns, he's even the start of the game, he was looking amazing. So now you've lost that, and if any Browns at the prime time, you've lost the key player. So I think it's disappointing for the league. I find it I saw it was feeling bad for the Browns supporters. I'm not that far just because, what the Browns actually did transactional to get that quarterback. I don't really feel bad for that organization, but I do feel bad for Nick Chubb because I think, and he feels like he's one of them players who everyone respects him.
Yeah.
He's one of them where,
beloved,
even if I think I heard the Steelers fans were clapping him off and, cheering for him, against your main rivals. You don't see that all the time with players. So obviously he's well respected and it's sad news.
Yeah, I think we've seen, Joe, to your point earlier on, the last 4 Monday Night Footballs. So we've seen Nick Chubb and that horrific knee injury, Aaron Rodgers down, the death of Tom Brady's career at the hands of the Dallas Cowboys, and DeMar Hamlin's cardiac arrest. But who's Monday Night Football next week?
Well, didn't they also have the Peyton and Eli? Wasn't that a curse as well, that every player who joined them would lose a week after? So it just feels
the Manning cast curse.
Yeah.
We've got another double header next week. Got Eagles, Bucks, and Rams, Bengals. So maybe definitely rest Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Just rest him. Like, let's not risk it.
Just don't take the risk. Yeah, and this, I'll let you guys talk about this a little bit more, but I've watched 2.5 quarters, and this game was absolutely turgid. Just mistakes everywhere. I checked to see how many penalties there was. I could have sworn there was about 40 penalties in that first half. It ends up being 13 in the game, but it just seems every play there's a penalty. Every play needs some sort of review. It was just a mess of a football game.
I think from my point of view, I don't know how the Browns lost this. Well, I do.
Yeah.
Just silly. It was the turnovers and their own mistakes. It felt like Steelers had no right to win this game. I thought their offense looked terrible again. I think it looked slightly better, but not that much better. And like the one big, huge passing yard, it wasn't like Pickett threw it down the field and got like a huge deep throw. It was a fairly, intermediate pass where Pickens did all the work and ran it all. So it wasn't. Yeah, I was because coming into this year, I was pretty high on Steelers. I think I had them on in the playoffs because I thought the defense is going to be great and I thought the offense looked good. But I think Matt Canada's, time pretty numbered. I think all the fans are already after him, booing and like when the camera pans to the offensive coordinator quite a few times during the game, it's not a good sign. And I think it was obviously the Pittsburgh defense won the game. Interception off the first play and the fumble recovery touchdown at the end. Really, that's what won this game from
Alex Highsmith, right? He got the INT right at the start, and then he calls the fumble for TJ Watt.
Not bad for his second pass rusher.
Not bad at all. Yeah. And Deshaun Watson's getting his touchdowns just to go into the black and gold, not to Cleveland. So at least that's amusing. But yeah, I think the Steelers kind of tricked us all a little bit in the preseason because their offense looked a lot better in the preseason. Mm-hmm. But I think it's almost like Matt Canada can do okay against vanilla defenses that are maybe checked out a little more. Yeah. And
because he has played like the San Fran and the Browns defense, which again, top 10, top 5 kind of defenses. But I think also like some of that, I think it was like the 4th and 1, they tried to do a little trick play, and it was like just you've got. I know Najee Harris, great fantasy pick, is not looking great, and but still you feel like the Steelers should be like a thumping kind of running game, and they're just going for this trickery, going on the outside when they've got like maulers on the offensive line. It's just just play the simple football sometimes.
Yeah. And is it that the fact that they've played San Francisco and they've played Cleveland, you've got very good defensive fronts? Is that why we've seen the Steelers struggle? So maybe the game plan that we will see from the Steelers moving forward is to lean on the run, lean on Najee Harris, and then play off that, as opposed to they couldn't really do that against the Browns and the 49ers. And that's why it's looked such a mess.
I think my only pushback is, the Rams has not got the great, they've played well, but they had a good game against the San Fran's defense. I think you can scheme it. I just think it's just, yes, I think it's it's part of it, but I don't think it can just be the complete reason. I think you can scheme up against, like, no matter how good a defense is, you can scheme them to look semi-decent if you're supposed to be a good offense. It's like, when we've seen other teams looking bad on offense against great defenses, most of the time it's because, it's Zach Wilson. It's not a great offense. What's happening, like the Pittsburgh coming in, we were expecting them to be one of the, having a good offense. And if you're going to have a good offense, you've got to play well against good defense. And I think it's just the scheme's just not being good enough. Pickens is just looking. It feels like a kind of quarterback where if he loses his confidence, then it just goes in his shell, and he's not one of them quarterbacks a bit like Josh Allen, where it feels like he would just be like, I've thrown 3 interceptions.
I'll throw myself out of it.
Exactly. I'm going to go for it again. It feels like Pickens is the opposite end of that. He's had a few bad snaps, like, oh shit, I don't want to make any more mistakes. I'll start being conservative, and obviously not having a great offensive scheme doesn't help that as well.
He missed a couple of wide open throws. There's one, obviously, so the catch and run of Pickens from Pickett. And it's the exact same play, but under no pressure. So on the touchdown passes, he's got somebody hanging all over him, and he still makes the throw. And yet he has a very similar slant opportunity under no pressure, and he drops the ball 3 or 4 yards short and Pickens' feet.
I think that. Sorry.
No, go on, Byron. Sorry.
I was going to say, like, just on the running game for the Steelers, like, whether it's working or not, like they're not getting blown out in this game. Commit to it. Yeah. Jalen Warren and Najee Harris had as many rushing attempts as Tyler Algier did for the Falcons, who's their second running back, and that's their 2 running backs combined of getting the same amount. Like,
but it is rough when it's 2.6 average on 21 carriages.
I think put them off. They were going back. They were 3 and 4 yards backwards a time. And that was the Browns were good, but the Steelers were the running plays were getting blown up time after time after time. And I think that's probably a bit. Well, we can't keep doing that. But they need to fix. They need to help pick it out with getting that running game going.
Yeah,
and on
running time down, like Pickett is not winning your games. Like at least a rushing game, if it's not good, it's not going to lose you the game necessarily. I think it's a real concern.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's part of the reason why that game felt like it went on for 4 fucking hours.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, Watson was a $230 million guarantee, 3 first-round picks. I remember, like, again, a preseason pod we did. I think we spoke to was it Bobby G?
Bobby G, yeah.
And I think we questioned if Watson was going to actually come back to what he was before. And I don't think I said he wasn't too happy, but he was disagreeing with us that we were even questioning, is he actually going to be a top 10 quarterback? Like, I think, and I was saying, I think, he could easily come like a, 15 to 20 kind of quarterback, but to how much you've given up and how much you pay him, you want him to be top 5, at least top 10, and he's just not there. It just looks so skittish and just looks.
If this is who Deshaun Watson is, this is one of the worst moves a franchise has ever made. Like, we called Trey Lance one of the worst draft trades recently, one of the worst ever. But the 49ers kind of buy themselves good grace because they're still a good team.
If
you go up to Deshaun Watson and then have to pay him $250 million, you've crippled your franchise for, I don't know, until that contract's gone.
Yeah. Is there a bit around, look, we've seen, obviously, Deshaun Watson, that game against the Bengals that they win, obviously, it was just a mess, wasn't it? Couldn't really throw the ball.
He threw a terrible interception in that game.
Yeah, but also it was a mess, wasn't it? The weather was bad, all that jazz. It didn't lend for passing game. This Pittsburgh Steelers defense is a really, really good defense. It's got a particularly good front, as we've talked about, even though they were missing Cam Hayward. Is there a bit where do you think he can settle down? Because a lot more is going to be asked of him now with Nick Chubb going down.
I think you kind of just have to lean on, like, the talent is obviously somewhere in there. There's plenty of reasons why it could get better, but I know I'm kind of poking at you earlier about, like, Geno is who he is, but, like, at a certain point, like, quarterbacks who are they are who they are now. Like, Russell Wilson, I don't expect to ever be a top 10 quarterback again. I don't know why I would expect Deshaun Watson to suddenly become Deshaun Watson again from who he was. I was encouraged by Elijah Moore yesterday. He looked really good in the first half. Kind of got faded out the game in the second half, weirdly. But, there's weapons there that are okay. Like, Amari Cooper's a good receiver. Njoku's a good tight end. If they have to come out slinging it, I'm sure he'll look better in periods, but I think he'll throw games away in periods too. Yeah. I don't really see realistically where there's a path to say, like, oh yeah, he's going to be elite quarterback again. Because I think you kind of just, you're telling yourself a fairy tale if you think that.
I think it's one of them things. It's one of them weird ones because it's not like he's come back from a bad injury, and it's just like, is the shoulder ever going to come back? Is he ever going to get, like, the strength in his arm? It's 100% mental, and there's no way. Like, I get what you're saying, Byron, but I think because it is mental, it could, like, another year's time, it could suddenly be like, changes his attitude, and suddenly he's the Deshaun Watson or top 5. But do I think it? I don't think it will. But I'm definitely not ruling it out just because how good he was, and I think when he was that good, it wasn't like he was relying on his legs. He was relying on, like, physical traits. He was just an amazing quarterback, and I don't think when he was at Houston, I thought, in 5 years' time he's gonna lose his legs and is not going to be the same player again. So it's just tricky, but it's also one of them things. Am I bothered? Because who the man is like, I'm not too bothered whatsoever. So.
Put DTR in, come on.
Yeah.
Eat your losses, put Dorian Thompson-Robinson in, and let's just have some fun.
I didn't think we were going to be getting a Catherine Tate, am I bothered impression from Joe on this.
There you go. Another, before we finish this game, Jerome Ford did look good though, so I think they have got some hope in. He's not going to be Nick Chubb, but at least they've got a decent. And I wonder if Kareem Hunt's out there.
Well, I was going to say Kareem Hunt's in for a visit today. That's not a joke. He is literally in for a visit with Cleveland.
Oh,
now,
fair enough.
so
There you go.
Makes perfect sense. So
yeah, it does just come out there, and so yeah, that was that. It was just very AFC North football, wasn't it? It was like December AFC North football, and I'm not even going to bother watching the rest of it. But shout out TJ Watt, he became the Pittsburgh Steelers all-time sack leader during the game. Obviously, got the fumble recovery for the touchdown as well.
His first ever touchdown.
Is that TJ Watt's first ever touchdown? That's not true. That's not true.
That's what they said on the broadcast last night.
Not true. He scored in playoffs against the Chiefs, didn't he?
I don't recall. Maybe regular season they were only counting then, which would be weird. But
if you want to go look, I'm pretty sure he got when the Chiefs blew them out in the wild card. It must have been a wild card round or divisional round. No, when was the last time Steelers won a playoff game? I'm pretty sure that was it a playoff.
I think it was Ben's second to last.
Yeah, he's definitely scored a touchdown in that game. It's the first touchdown of the game as well.
Let's move on.
Yeah, they have been credited for one in 2021 in the playoffs. Yeah, his regular season, the broadcast was referring to. And all the headlines as well, because I just Googled it to check, and it's like, first career touchdown. But you can't outwork Paul, so.
Nice. Just pulled that
Credit
out
to you, Paul. Great shout.
Yes, I've not seen it yet. So, and it just seems we are going to have a one-on-one fight for Defensive Player of the Year between Micah Parsons and TJ Watt. I think that's the way it's going. It's going to go, one up each other all throughout the season. should make for some fun down the stretch. Maybe one of them can win MVP and one of them can get Defensive Player of the Year. That would be nice. Sick of it being quarterbacks.
Yeah, imagine the odds on that.
I don't think you're winning that one.
Yeah. That brings us to the end of the detailed roundup. We've gone a while there. A lot to talk about week 2. Probably be a boring week next week, and we'll be struggling to pick games to talk about. Shall we have a run through just our records and our picks, bets, and all that jazz? And then we'll touch on the games we haven't talked about, if that's all right. Let's roll. So let's start with our overall picks. So, yes, we'll pick every game. We've got this competition going all the way through where we'll pick against the spread every single game for the season. So, it didn't go particularly well, did it, this year? So, this week, in week 2. I went 6-8-2 with the 2 pushes. Joe and Byron went 7-7-2.
Keep it 500, yeah.
Pretty rancid week. Overall records then, I'm 13-17-2. Byron 17-13-2, and Joe 16-14-2. This is the competition I'm least bothered about, by the way, because I'm winning bets and the
it shows.
Says it now 2 weeks in.
So I can't remember if
he loves donating to charity. Don't worry.
Yeah, I'm a nice guy. Let's have a look. So I can't remember if we went away and pulled it, but we do need to track it. So there's 4 games we were unanimous on this week. So we all took the Eagles -6, that pushed. We all took the Chargers -3, that lost. We all took the Chicago Bears +2.5, that lost. And we took the Pittsburgh Steelers +2.5, which won. I think we're pretty poor in those.
So
if
last
I back
week
the Bears at 2.5 again, put me in a straight jacket.
Last week we did all right. I think we went 2-1. Everyone had Washington, which lost. Everyone had the Eagles, and everyone had the Cowboys, which we did win. So 2-1 last week.
Slightly worried when we all picked one. So let's just quickly run through that. So we all had the Eagles that lost. Thursday Night Football, Eagle, a real frustrating one with Minnesota scoring at the end to cover. Criticism of primetime Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins was not the reason Minnesota lost this game at all. Kirk Cousins actually played really, really well when they got beat 34-28. Again, after going 11-0 in those one-score games last year, the Minnesota Vikings are now 0-2 and 0-2 in one-score games. We kind of thought the luck wouldn't kind of stick with them, but how are the Vikings going to turn this around, or do we think they'll just be okay and
I think it's going to be a middle of the road team, to be honest. I think
Yeah.
I think they actually play the Eagles pretty well. You know, we're talking about you hating the OT rule. I hate the when he fumbled it throughout the end zone, and then suddenly it's the Eagles' ball. But if he did it just on the 1 yard line, they would get the ball at the 1 yard line. Doesn't make much sense. You know, if they do get that just before the half, you know, get 7 there, you know, it could be a lot tighter game. So I think they're gonna. Yeah, I think it's middle of the road, but they've got the Chargers next week, which, you know, 2-0 teams. So, yeah, I think they're going to be probably around 500, a bit lower than that. I can't see them doing much, especially with that defense.
Eagles seemed to spring to life in the second half, but they didn't look good. They didn't look great against the Patriots. They were given a lot of gifts against the Patriots. They were given some gifts again.
Yeah, I was going to say the fumble look is.
Yeah.
You know,
but the 2-0, that's the kind of that's
absolutely.
the thing. You know, when they get better and it's if they were 0-2 and playing like that, I'd be like, oh yeah, this is a big worry. But you know, 2-0 and they're probably going to get better. So I think they're probably like the third best team in the NFC so far. So they're still there around.
Good. Yeah. Like what you're saying there. Cool. Green Bay, Atlanta, we talked about. I was on the Packers. So annoying if I'd just got the Packers on plus, but obviously that's covered. Against the Falcons. Colts, Texans. Andy Richardson looked good. Then he got his head caved in. Again, yeah. I'm a bit different now because obviously it was just kind of tripped up and then banged his head on the floor, didn't it? But
he self-reported as well, didn't he? That was like a big story. That they didn't even like flag it. He was him who said, "This is a bit weird." But
I'm sure the coaching staff will get that out of him before too long.
Like you said, Byron, the NFL cares about player safety.
But they got off to a real good start, didn't they? The Colts in that game, and we're up. Obviously, Gardner Minshew could kind of just come in and manage it. What do we make of the Texans again? Seem to struggle again.
That line's a problem.
A huge problem.
This was one I know I'm the lone wolf here on picking the Texans. As soon as Larry Tunsil was ruled out, though, I switched mine up, and I actually won my bet on the Colts to win by 10 or more, or win by 10.5, I think it was. So, I mean, that came a close one in the end, but that line is a huge problem. Although, shout out CJ Stroud. He now has more 300-yard passing games in his career, one than Justin Fields. So, pretty impressive. I think Stroud looked pretty good when he wasn't sprinting for his life.
I think the other thing with the Texans, like, is, you know, you get your quarterback, it's looking awful, but they've got so many holes, and without a first-round pick next year, it's a bit like it could be a few years before they're actually competitive again.
Well, they have Cleveland, so they might be the only team who are not too disappointed to see Nick Chubb get hurt.
Indy, did they end up at +1 before the game? Obviously, we had him as -1 on here.
I think he was still -1. I think I chucked it on after Byron said it, and I was expecting it to flip. But I think even during the game, it didn't flip.
I was surprised.
Yeah. Interesting. So, yeah, Colts there. Me and Joe on that. Byron, you were on the Texans. Seattle, Detroit, we've talked about. Me and Joe were on the Seahawks. Chargers, we just don't want to talk about them. Buffalo, bit of a get-right game for them. They won 38-10. 38-10 it was, wasn't it? Yeah, yep. Against the Raiders. They needed that, didn't they, after losing to Jets on Monday Night Football?
Yeah, and it seemed like a bit of a squash game. Just come in, pound the Raiders, celebrate. Didn't seem too much to it. It's not a game I had a huge eye on, I must be honest, but every time I looked at it, it was getting more and more comfortable.
I think people probably started to worry first drive for the Raiders touchdown, and he was like, oh God, what's happening here? He's like, the Raiders going to actually pull up an upset, and Jimmy does what he does, but then he went a bit downhill after that.
Yeah, Bills get right game. The Colts were +1 because I took them at +1.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
I looked in the morning and he was still minus.
So it did swing around. Chiefs Jacksonville. So get a game that I thought we would be talking about. We didn't, just because of some other exciting games. Chiefs get on the board, 117-9, again close one possession game. Match we may see again come playoff time. Again, are we still to be worried about the Chiefs?
I think you're still to be worried about Jacksonville as well. Well, not still to be. I think I'm very worried about Jacksonville. Their offense is not clicking. I don't know how they lost this game. They got in so many good positions. They had the 1st and goal at like the 1 or the 2 yard line, and Lawrence went for a run, lost yardage, and then they just couldn't get it in. They seem like they're just lacking that little bit of execution that they had at the end of last season. I'm sure they'll still win the division because they're in a cakewalk of a division, but I was really disheartened by the way they didn't get close in this game. Well, they kept the game close, sorry, but like by the time it was all said and done, Chiefs walked away with 7-point win, 8-point win.
And it's one of them where, like you said, in the playoffs, that could decide who's playing home and away. And Chiefs do have a big advantage playing at home, and Jacksonville's in one of them divisions where they could have easily got this number 1 seed, just because who they play and what all the other divisions are like, and you need to win these kind of games to actually make that happen. And like I said, it was the offense wasn't as good as as we were anticipating. Obviously, Kirk had a better game this week, but you got to score touchdowns if you want to win any games, and their target should be the Super Bowl with with the quarterback they've got and the division they're in, and and if you only score 9 points, it's not a good look. But I'm not too worried about the Chiefs. I think they're still struggling on offense, but they've still got Patrick Mahomes. I'm never going to worry about it.
Yeah, he'll be fit next week as well.
Yeah, and I'm never going to really worry about them until they start losing some horrible games in a row. I think
I was just looking up while you were talking there, Joe, just to reiterate. I knew I'd seen it. In EPA expected points added, the Jags passing offense is 31st out of 32 behind the Steelers. Like, they're behind the Bears, they're behind Carolina, behind Cincinnati. That's how bad it's been to start the season for Jacksonville.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they can get right. But yeah, the Chiefs again, Kelsey and Chris Jones back. The wide receivers caught some passes this week, which helped as well.
Yeah, I think Tony had a few as well, didn't he?
Yeah, I think Tony had 5 grabs, Skymour had a few grabs. So yeah, that helps your offense. We talked about Bengals Ravens. I'm no longer going to back the Chicago Bears. They are awful.
Number 1 pick twice in 2 years running.
If that happens, you take Caleb Williams and get rid of Justin Fields, don't you?
If you're in a position to do it anyway, Justin Fields shouldn't be in the team anymore. Like, I know it's great that Caleb Williams is available, but like, if you're picking number 1 2 years in a row, like, Justin Fields isn't it then, is he?
It feels like, and Byron, you're a lot closer to it than us, but from what I've seen these last couple of days, it feels like they have just turned on Justin Fields as a result of
the mood in this area is at Justin Fields, but it's at the franchise as a whole. Like that, I think Lavonte David came out and called them out for the under losing play of the weekend where they had the pick 6 right at the end. The Bears called the exact same play 3 times in a row. And that doesn't happen in the NFL. That doesn't happen in college. It barely happens when you play Madden. Like, you can't do that. And like, Justin Fields is not looking good. He's taking so long to process. And like, he's just holding the ball and waiting. And the O-line isn't great. And you could say the receivers aren't great. But you've got to be quicker. He's looked worse now than he did as a rookie when he was very raw. Like,
there's a screen grab that I've seen today of one of the plays that really any other quarterback, and I'll include Josh Dobbs in that, I'll include all of the backup quarterbacks in the NFL would make, where he's protected. He's got a full cone protection. Yeah. No one's within 5 yards of him. He's
2
got
receivers.
Just a simple seam, safety quarterback nowhere near, and it's a touchdown all day long. And the outcome of the play is he gets sacked.
He's sacked, yeah. He's just eating them.
Yeah. It's crazy when you watch him because, like you said, when he drops back, he doesn't wind up to throw it. It took him so long to even do that. And just getting to him. And obviously the Bears haven't got the great offensive line as well. And just thinking about how much optimism there was in the summer about Justin Fields. And I never got it just because they lost how many games in a row at the end of last season.
I think they've lost 17 in a row now. So it must have been 15 to end the season, maybe.
So I wasn't high on the Bears whatsoever, but I didn't think they were going to be this terrible. And, Tampa Bay 2-0. Who would have predicted?
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield looking average quarterback.
So Baker Mayfield's looking better than the guy in Cleveland.
Yeah. Baker's looks okay. I think the key that Baker's got Mike Evans
and Godwin.
And Godwin, but Mike Evans is he had a monster day, 6 receptions, 171. yards and a touchdown. Helped me batter you in fantasy, Joe. Mike Evans is going to get another 1,000-yard receiving season, isn't it?
Easily.
Probably.
I think it's like, I don't know why when I was like put the Bears on, I think I was thinking it just for the game, is that Tampa Bay, Tampa Bay's, they've got so many players who you'd be like, if they won the Bears, they would be their best player on that position easily. And it's just like, why did I choose the Bears? It's just crazy. Yeah. Even on the defensive side, there's so many players on Tampa Bay. If they won the Bears defense, you'd be like, oh, that's their best, linebacker. It's their best front defensive end, and it's just, but you live and learn. No more backing the Bears.
I will no longer back the Bears. I sort of said, I think the Bears might actually be sneaky good this year. They're not. They are absolutely rancid. And I just couldn't.
Didn't you have them in the playoffs?
I had them winning the division. I had them.
It's very sneaky.
I had them winning 10 games.
Not sure they're going to score.
In the next 3 years, is that what it is?
Yeah. When I saw Tampa -2.5, I was like, well, I can't back that.
It's a get right game for Chicago next week anyway. They're going to Kansas City, so
how many are they getting? 12.5. I can't.
12.5. Yeah.
I can't back that. I can't in all good faith, all good conscience back that. It's a lot of points.
It'll be in next week talking about the Bears.
What I say, the key thing is, as we're about to talk about this next game, the key thing is what I say on here on a Thursday when we record for the preview versus where I land on a Sunday can be two very, very different places.
It's how you always win, isn't it, Paul?
Sadly, I don't always win. Missed
67%, yeah.
So, not bad. That won't stay for the season, of course, but it's a good start. I don't feel I can talk about this game without swearing a lot. 49ers and Rams, so me and Joe got screwed by Sean McVay. Niners not covered it, but 30-23 to the Niners. The Rams, I think the Rams are looking okay. They had a good win last week. I think they were pretty competitive against the.
It was a close game. Going into the third quarter, it was either team could have won it. It was just the few interceptions, which probably you blame the first one on the receiver, and then Stafford on the second. Well, I think they blamed another receiver on the second one as well. It was a close game. I could have seen the Rams winning it. Usually, the San Fran normally smash the Rams most. They've won, I think, 9-0 in regular season games, the last 9. It was a lot closer than I expected, and LA's found some decent, well, not even decent, some great wide receivers to sit behind Cup. What's the guy's name?
Nakua and Atwell, both.
Yeah, so
Nakua's getting all the headlines.
He got 25 receptions in his first 2 games and 200-yard games, like the first. It was just constantly just constantly intermediate. I think the 49ers were playing a bit soft against them. They were trying to cut out the deep shot, but every single play, he was just cutting back like curling. He's just there, just straight into his chest from Stafford and just catching it. It was just simple, to be honest. And when they get cut back, it's they could actually be a spicy team.
Shout out, possibly. They've got all the tools.
Mm-hmm.
Puka Nakua, by the way, is the only player to start their career with 2 games. In their first 2 games, have 20 or more catches. He has 25. No one has 20. Nobody in NFL history has 20, or 21, or 22, or 23, or 24. Only one has 25. Puka Nakua. There's only 14 players who've got half that amount, 13 or more. What the hell is Puka Nakua?
Where did they get him from?
I believe it was BYU. It's a 5th round draft.
Come out of BYU, yeah.
I'm curious if Cup played, how many he would have got.
Not 25, but
but it does he's just such a good route runner.
Yeah,
and he's just got great hands. He's just piling on.
And I know there is a kind of an argument in fantasy Twitter circles of vacated targets, etc. But targets are earned as well, especially as a 5th round rookie. I don't think he'd have had 25 receptions in his first 2 games if Cooper was there. But I'm sure he'd still be playing really well.
Mm-hmm.
And I just cannot get over that there is not a single player in NFL history who has 20 receptions in their first 2 games and he has 25. That is just insane. Incredible.
Rams
absolute shout out to Puka Nakua.
Monday night against the Cincinnati Bengals. Should be a good game. That might quite a good game.
Mm-hmm.
Giants we've talked about. I took Arizona. You guys took the Giants to cover. Fools. I also took the Jets to cover. I thought it'd be closer, but Dallas just kind of ran away with it, didn't they? Yeah, Phil. Yeah, I mean, the Jets did keep it. I finished 30-10, didn't it, to the Cowboys, but the Jets did keep it close for a period, and they just kind of ran away second half, didn't it?
If Sauce caught that pick six, it was there in his chest.
Yeah.
Then I think I would have made it, squared it up. I would have been leading because I think he was just after Wilson got that amazing touchdown.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I was impressed with that. That was one of my bets of the week, was Dallas minus 17.5.
Yeah.
I think Dallas, I'm not going to say took it easy, but they knew they would just go down, kick a field goal, and just keep it ticking over. I don't think there was any urgency from Dallas to try and stretch it any further. Just take the win, go on to next week.
That was a bit of a worry for me. They ended up kicking 5 field goals, Dallas.
Yeah.
And my worry is a little bit at the time. So even though statistically, I think last year they were the best red zone offense, in moments when it mattered, they were terrible in the red zone.
Yeah.
And my worry is actually get right and just fucking hammer it in time after time after time. And they just took negative plays, or it was penalties or whatever, and they just end up settling for field goals. That is a bit of a worry for me.
You got Cardinals next week, so...
Yeah. So my big worry is we're going into this game against the Niners in week 5 very undercooked because we've actually played nobody. That was supposed to be a really tough game. Or would have been a very different game if Rodgers plays. Of course it would be, and a big test. But we've got the Cardinals, we've got the Patriots, and then we go to San Francisco on Sunday Night Football in week 5. So I'm a bit worried about that. Obviously, thoroughly impressed with Micah Parsons as always. He's certainly in the running, as we just talked about a few moments ago, for Defensive Player of the Year. If he carries on this way, I think he could make a case for MVP. I genuinely do. It's about time someone on the defense got some love, and it's about time it wasn't a quarterback. Mahomes has had 2 pretty ordinary games, hasn't he? So he's not got off to the hottest start. Of course, he's the favourite, but it'd be great. And whether it's Micah Parsons or TJ Watt, or if Aaron Donald gets going, love to see one of those guys win it. But
Micah Parsons 50-1 for MVP.
50, but he's been incredible in both games, and he's unplayable at times, isn't he? He's just unplayable. Cowboys, Jets, that's done. Commanders, Broncos, we've talked about. Dolphins, Patriots, Sunday Night Football. Dolphins win 24-17. I think we got... I had Patriots covering, sadly not. Dolphins did. I think we had a couple of unders. I hit the under on this for one of my bets.
I did as well.
You as well, Joe. Tua, pretty solid game. Patriots kept Tyreek Hill under wraps, really, for the game, didn't it? I think he ended up with 40 yards, 5 receptions, 40 yards, something like that. One player I particularly want to talk about is the blocked field goal. And are we going to see every special team unit have a man in motion now?
They'll try it, but the risk is pretty big as well, though, because you can't run into the line. And you have to time the snap right. Because, I mean, if it's, 4th and 4 and you time it wrong, then you give up, you're on to a new drive, new set of downs. So
I'm curious if any trick players will come for it. So whoever was on the right side will suddenly just peel out and just.
I was wondering the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and
the tight end over there.
I know it's been hyped up a lot. It was very cool. I don't think there's a cooler one than Cam Chancellor used to do, where he dived over the line and blocked it. That was badass. This is really cool too, to be fair. But I don't think we should forget Cam Chancellor's incredible athleticism of doing the dive and block.
Nice. The Patriots think pretty good defensively. Obviously, going to need a bit more offensively, but they've hung around in games against the Eagles and the Dolphins now. Be interested to see if they can kind of get it together and start turning some of those close games into wins.
I think they've hung around. Well, they definitely have hung around, but if good teams win and great teams cover, the Patriots haven't covered yet this season. Bad teams lose. Worse ones fail to cover. I think this is what maybe the expectation, not necessarily, but they're always going to have a good defense and they're always going to have a limited offense. And it was just, are they ever going to be pair those up enough to be competitive this year? And it kind of looks like the answer's probably no. Very encouraging from Christian Gonzalez, though. He looks like a real good draft pick.
great pick, wasn't it? A great pick. I kind of just kind of stood that ball up, but yeah, went up and go get it. And possibly shout. He's had a really good start. Possibly shout for defensive rookie of the year as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think. Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
I was saying my big shout would just be Mostert, because I think last week I was like saying, not big. The running back's not looking amazing, and they're going to have to use them this week, and he had another big week. So shout him out. Prove me wrong.
Nice.
And yeah, Christian Gonzalez, you can still get plus 1,200 defensive rookie of the year. And that might look real good, because who do they play on Sunday? Zachary Wilson, the MILF Hunter. And Bill Belichick is going to love fucking him up. You know it.
So Sky Sports, I don't know if you remember, guys, but Sky Sports used to pick their games weekly for the games that they would put on. Now, this season, they're doing it in 4-week blocks. So they have Cowboys on in the late game last week. They've got Patriots Jets on in the people of the UK are not very happy. They've just got dud games on.
It's why
the people of the UK, not NFL fans. All 2% of NFL fans are furious.
It's why you move countries, Paul. So you can watch any game.
Yeah, but it's just because it's up. The guys at Sky Sports, obviously, I work there, but I'm not defending them. They couldn't win because when they pick the games weekly, people would bitch and moan about it, especially on Twitter and stuff like that, and about the games they picked. Because what happens is they just pick teams that are doing well, that may be more interesting games to watch. It's what they try and do. And now they've gone to this 4-weekly approach. That's been panned as well now, so they can't win. Don't pick all the fucking Jets games.
I wonder why, because obviously, I live in Canada and I use the DAZN app, and you can just choose any game. So I don't know, is there not something like that? Or Sky
you can get Game Pass on DAZN. So that changed over to DAZN in Europe for this season, where it used to be just the NFL Game Pass that it was before. It's changed over to DAZN. People hate that as well. There's just no winning. Let's just touch on Monday Night Football. We talked about Pittsburgh, Cleveland. We were all on the Steelers plus 2.5, and then New Orleans, Carolina Panthers. I went for Carolina. You went for the Saints. Didn't really matter. It was a push. This was also
the perfect ending. The perfect ending to just be a push.
It was an unfortunate push, though. The Saints were a much better team, I felt like.
Yeah, I think I heard that because I didn't watch this game. I'm glad I didn't. But I heard that the Saints defense just played it really preventive defense at the end when they're winning by 8, and it just the Carolina just dinged just all the way down.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a bit worried about Carolina. Again, it's the line doesn't look great, and that's not good for a rookie QB.
I thought it was interesting. Frank Reich came out today and said he's not going to give up play calling. Play calling is not the problem. It's like you've got a rookie number 1 draft pick. You're a brand new head coach, and you're already coming out defending your job. Doesn't sound great.
I still can't believe he got this job as well.
Oh yeah, you're Frank Reich hater, aren't you?
He picks the Panthers to win the division. Hates Frank Reich. You're a confused
again, Byron. He wins both ways,
Yeah, Frank Reich's a bum. Or you're absolutely right, Joe. Yeah.
Look, my takes aren't necessarily coherent, and I'm not claiming that they are.
They're not coherent or consistent.
Yeah. Well, I'll forget what I did a couple of weeks ago, and look, it's fine. It's good job it's all documented.
That's the only reason we record these, yeah.
Yeah, I reserve the right to flip, even if it's in a matter of days, where I'm adamant that I love the Rams, to back in the Niners in 3 different bets. But yeah, it just seemed a real odd one, and I thought Bryce Young will be a good quarterback. I just think it was a bad appointment. And it was more as well. They should have just kept Steve Wilkes. He's gone to the Niners, but I thought Steve Wilkes should have been given the shot, and felt really bad for him that he didn't, and felt especially bad that it was Frank Reich. That's that. Should we move to our 4-fold challenge? Conscious we've gone long this week. 4-fold challenge. Let's have a look. Why are those crosses so big, Joe, on that graphic?
Because you shouldn't be losing, man.
So, let's start with Joe. So, Joe, you hit 4-0 again. Did you back it as a 4-fold parlay?
Yep. Won $150.
So, plus 1,500. Was it plus 1,400, plus 1,500? Somewhere in that region, yeah.
It's one of them weird things where I think it was plus 13, but then I got a $20 bonus every time I do a 4, something like that.
Somewhere around plus 1,400. Yeah. So that's 2 parlays you've hit back-to-back weeks, 2 4-fold parlays. Whatever. 4-fold, 4-leg hackers. I'll just call them what they're actually called. So you had the Chiefs as your favourite. which Chiefs covered. Scott Cobb, our guest, went 3-1. I went 3-1 as well. And Byron, you went 2-2. I had Niners as favourites. Obviously, didn't hit, and we'll come on to that in our winners and losers. Byron -3 on the Dolphins, which covered. Joe, you had -3.5 on the Chiefs. Scott had -9.5 on the Bills. Underdogs, I had left there. Obviously, the Ravens were in there. I pulled them out of my actual bet, which was annoying, but Ravens covered +3.5. You had Byron the Jaguars. Opposite to Joe, didn't cover. Joe, you had the Seahawks, who won outright. Scott was with us on the Bears, +2.5 as his underdog. All four of us on it. We should have known it was not coming in. Overs, we all hit our overs. Colts, Texans for me. Ravens, Bengals for Byron. Packers, Falcons for Joe. And Seahawks, Lions for Scott. Under, I hit. I was big on that. It was one of my big bets of the weekend as well. Chiefs, Jags. It was way under, wasn't it? What did it get to? 26 points. Yeah. Bears, Bucks surprisingly went over, and Scott and Joe both backed Dolphins, Patriots, unders. So I'm at 5-3. Byron's 4-4. Joe 8-0. Incredible start. If you're tailing Joe at the minute, tell Joe Houston because he's making money left, right, and centre. And the guests, so Scott Cobb and Bobby G so far, are combined 4-4. In terms of bets, Joe, you had a good. Byron, you got the Cowboys -17.5. What odds was that in the end? It was a decent return, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'd have to look, to be honest.
Got it somewhere.
I think it's +275, maybe.
+251, yeah. +251.
I had a little 24 for myself there.
Had that. You get the T. Higgins yards up as well, yeah?
Yeah, I got T. Higgins, Jalen Waddle, and I actually had one that I'd forgot I'd placed, which was Gerald Everett over 31.5, and he went over as well. So could have done with trebling those three up, but all three hit.
Well, it's nice 4 hits there, Joe. You were very unlucky, weren't you, with your anytime TD bets because Metcalf was about 3 inches short. But you hit the over in the Colts, Texans, and hit the over in the Ravens, Bengals. Your 3-leg parlay didn't come in. I had a decent week. I went 4-1-1, so I had the Eagles push. I had the Niners -7.5, and then I hit on under Dolphins, Patriots, under Chiefs, Jags, over Seahawks, Lions, and Colts +1. I had a good week. I am 10-4-1, Mr. 67%. So I'll take that. It's a very good place to be after 2 weeks. We'll wrap up. Shall we have a quick look at Thursday Night Football? A very quick one. It's, I guess, the outcome of the game, I don't think is within doubt. It's Giants going to the San Francisco 49ers. Line as it is right now is San Francisco -10. Joe, I mean, the Niners are going to win, surely, but do you think the Niners cover the 10?
Oh. I'm going to say yes. Yeah, just because if Barkley's out, if Thomas is still out, if I think the Cardinals have got like 3 or 4 sacks. If the Cardinals can get and hit Daniel Jones plenty of times, I think it might be like how it was against the Cowboys, where he's going to be hit a lot, interceptions a lot of fumbles. And Brock Purdy's, just looking sound. He needs to hit a few of them deeper balls when they're open, but I expect them to cover 10, especially with a short turnaround. Giants being another win, Arizona, but staying 2 away games in a row in a short period. It's a big ask, especially when your best player and your best offensive lineman are missing. So I'm going to say
I think we've not got great primetime games this week, I don't think. So we've got that's Thursday Night Football. Sunday Night Football is Steelers, Raiders. Who the fuck at NBC picked that game?
Well, they've both got big fan bases. Let's put it on.
Yeah. They're both one
even
and one.
When there's 2 games on Monday Night Football, like you're thinking, what's the other one? Like you're just stuck with Jimmy G, Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, not good for Sunday Night Football. Not good.
I did have a couple of Thursday night bets if want to shout these out before we.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
+1,000 for the safety to be scored.
Poor Daniel Jones.
Hey, it could be either team. I didn't specify. 49ers, I like this one in the Browns game, even though they don't come in. It's just a little market I've come across. 49ers to win the first half in a shot is +500. And slightly longer odds, but anytime TD, Elijah Mitchell +205. Again, short week. Chris McCaffrey doesn't need 30 touches a game. And Elijah Mitchell, 2 or more touchdowns +1,600.
Oh, nice. Cool. Yeah, I'll have a little. I think what market I'm real interested in is that again shouted out earlier the rushing yards, rushing attempts, which is interesting. We cashed Cleveland Browns over 27.5 rushing attempts. I think they ended up at close to 40. So yeah, one while the market isn't aligned to take advantage on. Winners and losers, we'll wrap up with that because I'm conscious we're nearly at 2 hours and you guys have got work to do. Winners and losers for the week. Joe, give us your winner.
Winner Ravens, just because it was a big division win and the fact that you know Browns are not looking better, Steelers are not looking great, and the Bengals are 0-2 and their quarterback might be injured. So the Ravens.
Ravens, nice. Byron, your winner of the week.
I'm going to give it up for Gino. Bounce back, big win in Detroit, looking like last year's Gino again, and yeah, arrows up.
Yeah, I just, by the way, appear to have an entire Leeds internet outage. So I'm not entirely sure the end of this is going to fucking record. Winners for me, my winner was going to be Gino. It's sad, but my winner this week is us. We got free football. So anytime there's overtime games, I think we're the real winners. Free football, and my loser of the week. You will not be surprised to hear this, but my loser of the week is Sean fucking McVay.
He can't be the loser of the week.
Yeah, he's a winner.
Great teams cover.
Yeah. So, look, I appreciate good teams and great teams cover. And the Rams did cover.
Great
if the NFL aren't looking into Sean McVay having money in the game, and you'll back your own team.
The NFL is sponsored by DraftKings. The NFL cannot be looking into that.
Well, look, the ban plays for betting on college football in the building. So if Sean McVay's took the Rams at +7.5 or +8 or whatever.
If Sean McVay's bet on it, yes. Sean McVay won't have bet on the game.
Well, it's the only reason he kicks that goddamn field goal.
I think, get my tinfoil hat on, gambling talk is so embedded in the NFL now. He wants to send the fans home happy. They'll have backed their team to celebrate, to cover the spread. He knows Rams fans back the despite the fact there was like 10% Rams fans in the arena. He knows that 10% of the stadium has backed the Rams to cover. And how else to send them home happy than a few dollars in the pocket?
It's a joke.
Good for him.
Just the
Great
saddest field goal. Look, if Stafford had thrown one into the end zone and it'd have been 30-27, and that's the way they do that with 4 seconds to go. I'm fine with that. I respect you. You've got balls. I respect that. What I don't respect is taking a fucking, what was it, a 40-yard field goal with 4 seconds to go. I don't understand. I can almost understand if it was a really long field goal. It's like, oh, let's have a practice at that sort of thing in a game time situation. But Sean McVay, you son of a bitch. You absolute son of a bitch. Not happy. Not happy at all. Can you tell?
Maybe a good thing if the end of this doesn't record.
Yeah.
Before you get a visit from the league office.
Yeah. Sorry, we didn't get to your losers of the week, guys, did we? Because I just went on a rant.
Well, I was going to go with Paul Redmond, but I think that's kind of, you covered yourself there.
Missed 7%.
Yeah.
We'd missed 70% if it wasn't for Sean McVay.
My loser of the week is, it was Justin Fields, but I think just for Chicago as an entire area because it's grim.
Mine's very similar. My loser is the whole history of Bears wide receivers. So the fact that Justin Jefferson has got more receiving yards within 3 and a bit season than anyone ever at the Bears is an absolute fucking joke. How can you have? That's just impossible, man. How can you have no one over, like, was it 5,000 or something?
It's 5,000 yards, yeah.
Yeah, like how can you not have a wide receiver at all in your whole history?
Bears have never had a 4,000 yard season from a quarterback ever. I said earlier, CJ Stroud has more 300-yard passing games than Justin Fields. Dwayne Haskins had more 300-yard passing games than Justin Fields has had in his career.
And Cutler had like a big year because I know he used to throw some bombs.
Yeah, he never got 4,000. He got like 37 something, I think, or 38 something.
Well, they got to that one NFC Championship game, didn't they? And that was it.
Because they've had some good wide receivers as well. That was like nuts with
Jeffrey and Marshall back then.
Yeah, it's just like
they're just. If the Bears didn't have 1985, they might be one of the most cursed franchises in NFL history for like the size of the team and this history and how revered they are and such a big market, and they're just garbage.
Yeah,
and they're always garbage. Like for 20 years now, they've just been, outside of Devin Hester, it's just been. Oh, they had that one okay year with Jay Cutler. Okay,
and then a double doink as well. Okay, then.
Sums them up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right, gents, we'll leave it there as we're approaching 2 hours. we'll try and keep these to an hour. But week 2 was tough because there was just so many great things to talk about. And again, apologies if we haven't focused on your team in particular. We'll get to them at some point. Do something good, then we'll talk about them. It's kind of how this works.
As we cover Chicago for an hour.
Or be spectacularly bad, and then we'll also talk about it. Don't just be middle of the road bad. So, yeah, gents, thanks ever so much for joining me for week 2. We'll be back on Thursday night / Friday morning, depending on how quickly I can get stuff uploaded, assuming the internet has returned by then. Someone just texted me from the other side of the city saying, "Is your internet down?" So that's not good, is it? So yes, we'll be back on Thursday night, Friday morning, and we will take a look at week 3. Again, you should be really telling us if you're listening, if you're following our socials. We're really, Joe's on fire at the minute. I've had a good start to the season. This work, we're having fun. We're not experts by any stretch of the imagination, nor do we claim to be. But when we're hot, we're hot. So follow us. You might make a few quid as well. And if you're not following us on our socials and you're not following us on Spotify, go do it right now. Follow us on Spotify, Good Teams and Great Teams Cover. Be notified of new episodes as and when they drop. Follow us on our YouTube, Instagram, and X at GTW_GTC. And we'll be back with you on Thursday night, Friday morning. See you later, chaps.